Sales development continues to grow in importance as a critical component of a successful go-to-market strategy. And with the explosion of new tools, technology, and processes, the sales development industry itself is thriving, as seen with the growth of the Tenbound Sales Development Market Map over at tenbound.com. On this podcast, we'll dive deep and go beyond sales development to think about the future of technology, processes, and tools in the industry with our host, noted futurist, author, and sales development practitioner, Justin Michael. Welcome to Beyond Sales Development. Tune in each week and be sure to hit subscribe, leave a comment, and turn on notifications to never miss an episode. And now, Beyond Sales Development with your host, Justin Michael.
Welcome back to Beyond Sales Development. I am your intrepid host, Justin Michael, doing my best William Shatner impression. We have Ian Moyse, a sales leader from the UK, with a storied history of success and results. I would love to learn more about you, Ian. Welcome to the show.
Justin, thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to hopefully give some insight and some value to your audience.
Yeah, thank you. So talk to me about sales. You know, everybody kind of falls into this thing. How'd you get started? Because to understand the future of sales, we kind of have to go back in time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I fell into it is the right word. I was initially, long story short, got introduced into computing in the early days. I won't say how basic the computers were at college and school. Went to work for IBM as a program analyst, and then saw salespeople out there in those days with the company car, seemingly getting it easy, with a mobile phone that was the size of a suitcase. And I thought, well, I know what I'm talking about, right? I understand this stuff. How hard can it be to sell it and talk about what you know? So that was it. And I went into inside sales at a small company, was quickly promoted into field sales. I would argue just by effort and tenacity, because I just worked so hard because I didn't know sales. So I made up for it in effort, and then went through channel sales, direct sales, sales leadership. And all the way through, it's been learning on the job. It's been learning that grafting the hard way, figuring out how to do it. Yeah, you get training and coaching, but I think that the real coaching and training comes from the people that you work with, not just for, but with the people around you, and what experiences they've had you can learn from. And for me, and we may talk about this in relevance of your subject, it's about staying relevant to the current buyer dynamic. And what I mean by that is we all change as buyers. We've all changed over the last 10 years because of social media, because of peer influence online, because of mobile, Amazon, etc. Whatever business you're in, customer, the way they buy and behave has changed. We all have. How do you deal with that as a salesperson? How do you adjust? How do you consistently stay relevant to the current world? And it's changed this year big time, right? For all of us.
Yeah, it's really true. So there's a lot of debates, and there's some great folks in England like Marcus Cauchy and Daniel Disney, but there's been these debates.
I know both of them well.
Yeah, so there's this whole thing of like, okay, are we going to do social selling or cold calling or emailing? Now, I'm a huge proponent of Omnichannel. If I could use anything ethically and morally to contact someone, I will, be it a carrier pigeon or sending them some chocolate cake, which I have done, send someone a whole flourless chocolate cake. Talk to me about the strategy. There's so many channels we can use. What is a reliable approach, a methodology or process that you could give us utility on? Like, here's the Ian Moyse approach to developing business, because it's actually confusing at this point what to do.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you there, Justin. There isn't one size fits all. The individuals you are trying to contact, let's be honest, you're not selling to a company. You're not trying to reach a company. That's easy, right? The receptionist's job is to answer the phone. You will get an answer. You want to engage with the relevant people to your product or service. And that will be different depending on what the product or service is, high cost, low cost, you know, who the influencers and decision makers in the business are. You want to have a conversation with them. And this is what we want to have, right? Today it's video. Normally it'd be ideally in person or on the phone, a conversation, not a communication. If you can pick up the phone and get hold of that individual, then do it. Why would you not do it, right? Social selling has its place. It is another tool in your kit bag in the modern world. It does not replace traditional sales methodologies. It complements them, and it typically enhances and complements them at the beginning when you're trying to get hold of someone. And I always talk through, it's pretty basic, right? Social selling is not about selling your software online. It's about using social media to start a conversation. It's as simple as that. And what I profess, and unfortunately I see so many sales managers, I would oppose leaders at this point, who are driving people, their teams, to activity rather than productivity. And what I mean by that is that, and I was selling telephony before, so what would come up would be, how would your product help us do each of my outbound SDRs do 70 or 80 calls a day rather than 50 to 60? And I'd always stop them and say, before we worry about how you do that, why are you doing that? And the why they're doing that is because they've worked out how many cold calls it takes to get a connection, how many conversations it takes to get a lead, and it's got harder. So what they're doing is moving the dial up. We need to do more activity. I would argue is you need to do more of the right things, because activity reaches a threshold where you can't go anymore. You get to a point where you can't get a human being to do 200 calls a day, 300 calls a day, 400. And if you're having to do more, I would argue the methodology is not working for you. You need to do something different. Don't keep doing the same old thing and expecting the same old results, right? It's the old phrase. So social selling, I think, has its place. Stop calling people, and I'm sure you'll get this. I did a short video on this a number of months ago, where you get inbound phone calls again and again and again, right? I get it. I've got people doing it to me now. I see the number come up, and I think, I bet that, leave it to voicemail, it's them again. Must be the 15th call. Ian, trying to get hold of you still. At what point do you think you realise I'm not answering it to you? And at this point, you've now put a bigger brick wall up because you've signalled to me you keep trying the same method and you're not being smart about it. So all of them have the right place, but I would argue these new methods are exactly that, methodologies, not what the behaviour we're seeing most people do, which is using LinkedIn Navigator to spam people as they did on email, but just do it on a different platform.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old school. I look at completes. I talk to financial advisors. Like, if you're not speaking to someone one-to-one, everything else is sort of tertiary or 10 flights down. I use power dialers. I still cold call every day, and the people I actually speak to live on the phone sometimes turn into deals, qualified opportunities in 2 weeks, even close within 30 days. The level of velocity, if you can get someone live, because with email communication, there's no way to handle their objections or rejections or concerns. They just sit there and they fall off. So I'm a big fan of putting phone in all over the spectrum. How are you training and coaching folks? Is that part of what you do? I'm sure you've run teams. Help leaders listening.
Yeah.
How do they improve this? And sometimes there's a culture in companies of like, we got to send all these big paragraphs, spend 5 hours a day researching. Some people, it's paralyzing. They want to do stuff, and sales has left the doing and become like, let's go to the library and read the books and think about it. And I think sales is an action, but take me through your thoughts on this stuff.
Yeah. So a couple of things there, I think. Number one, I've already mentioned is product activity is not productivity. So stop driving people on. It's obvious, and people are based on get an appointment, regardless of whether it's quality or whatever. Get an appointment, be a field sales rep, or how many calls you've done a day, or how many emails you've sent. It's look how busy I've been. But that's not necessarily directly correlating to success and output. Productivity does. So are you doing the right things? Work smarter, not harder, number one. The other thing, and I think really what you said there, and I talk about this all the time, is communication is not the same as conversation. And let me give you an analogy as a leader, and this is a bit of advice for all sales leaders, and I learned this the hard way. You have to catch yourself doing this and then challenge salespeople. The number of times I've heard salespeople, you'll do a deal review, passing in the corridor, you'll check in, have you managed to get hold of Fred at such and such? When did you last speak to Fred at your key op or Sue? And the answer you will often get is, I chatted to them yesterday, or I got an update from them yesterday. I spoke to them yesterday even, right? So what does that infer? You spoke to them. And I always double check that so you actually spoke to them, you had a conversation. And the number of times a salesperson will suddenly back down and go, no, I emailed them and they emailed me back. It's not a conversation. To your point, it's a communication which is flat. It's one way followed by one way. It's open to misinterpretation. You can't ask another question based on the answer you get, right? So if I asked you something, so how do you think we're doing? I want to win your business. On a scale of 1 to 10, how's my team supporting you? Where would you place us today? Oh, it's a 6. I'm sad to hear that, Justin. What would make it a 7 or 8? And straight away, I've got another question based on it, right? And I can say, why do you say it's a 6? You can investigate. You can't do that over email. And too often what I'm seeing now, particularly in the COVID world, is people are, and whether it's email or LinkedIn, right, it's still a communication, electronic communication, are defaulting back to that and thinking that's a customer engagement. It is a customer communication. It has its place. If we have a great conversation, I might then communicate something over to you to confirm what I said on the phone. Justin, want to make sure we understood, and there's a point of record that we're on the same understanding. Bullet, 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 bullet. That's fine. Could you confirm to me I understood our conversation? And if there's anything wrong, let me know. That's validation. It's a different use of it. It's the right use. But it shouldn't be, you've had 10 emails back and forth in the past week. Exactly what you said. Get on the phone to them. And here's the other thing I profess and train people on is change that. You talked omnichannel, change the channel. Too often, and you know where I'm going, where you nod, you'll get an email and it'll customer say, oh, you're doing great and I need this. Can you confirm this and do this and whatever? 99% chance they're replying on an email. If they send you a WhatsApp, we all do it. We default to responding on the same channel. Why would you not, on the right occasion, respond to the customer? Absolutely, I'd love to do that. But there's a couple of questions. When's good to jump on a call and just discuss it? Have a conversation and then confirm it in a communication. But no, because we got an email, you do become a keyboard warrior.
I love it.
You can't build rapport over email, I would argue, right? And turn it into a relationship.
This is like good Twitter fodder, like change the channel or keyboard warrior. The one I always said was Spreadsheet Jockey, right? The new science of management is you just sit behind Salesforce and build reports with sales ops. Again, it's not an action. This is a sport. This is not, we're not analysts here. Now, analysts are key for sales development, for getting your data figured out. So there's different problems, right? Talk to me about the technology stack. It's a big thing. It's what my work's about. When I think beyond sales development, I'm thinking about how can I automate? How can I hand stuff to VAs? How can I get better data accuracy? What elements of the tech stacks can I blend? What are the gaps? Can you just tell me your approach to leveraging technology stacks in addition to what you just outlined, which is quality process and quality training? Now let's talk about the shiny objects. Like, how do you eat a Reese's, the old American ad? What does Ian Moyes have in his stack, and how do you?
Well, it falls straight into CRM, right? Whichever CRM platform, and there are a plethora out there. I have sold CRMs before as well, and for 3 years. And too many people, I think, take the technology stack as the fix to their problems. I'll buy some marketing or sales tech and fix it. And I would argue it's a complementary. It's a tool to make you more effective, to better share information, but it does not fix the problem. It is, and this goes back to my old technology background, it's people, process, and technology, right? You got to get the right people and train them on the right behaviors of sales. You got to have the right processes around it and the right tech all aligned up. One of those three is broken and you will have a problem. So you could have the best CRM in the world and spend a fortune on it, but if you haven't aligned the processes around making it effective and efficient for the salespeople in the way that they work, transactional sales is very different to enterprise sales, for example. So for an enterprise opportunity, you may have a lot of information you want to collate. Don't force your sales rep to have the same view on a small lot. And I've seen that too often, is one size fits all, and salespeople getting one of two things, either getting bogged down in admin for admin's sake because of the systems, or missing stuff out and not filling it in because it's just, I don't know which bit I'm supposed to fill in for what type of opportunity. So, and I think that's a leadership responsibility, in my opinion. And the way I've worked that is to buy the right technology systems, but then make sure they're implemented to align with the relevant process to the relevant team in the appropriate manner. Don't do one size fits all, right? So what I like to use these systems for is things like white space analysis. Where are we missing? What information don't we know? And I always make sure the dashboards and visibility that I have as a sales leader, I share with my team. So they know what I'm looking for, and we work it through together in a collaborative fashion, and we change the fields and the processes and the looks to mean that I get what I want without hindering them for the sake of it. And too often I find there's a disconnect there. Here's all the dashboards I want, but here's all the effort it's created, and there's no understanding of that means the salesperson's behavior will change around a system. The system should not drive the behavior. The system should support the right behavior and the right analysis, to your point, of information coming from that behavior. So yes, I care about, are people doing the right thing? Are they active? Have they qualified? Have they gathered the information? But it's got to be done in a cohesive manner. Otherwise, as I said, I worked in selling CRM for 3 years and being engaged in those conversations directly with sales leaders and watching what people did. And the number of projects I worked on in customers where they had prior CRM systems and it was killing their productivity. It'd become salespeople have become admin jockeys. And I'm sure people listening to this will recognize that. So there is a danger, I think, of over techifying, if there's such a word, sales for the sake of doing it, that it's going to solve my problems and the technology will just make the selling happen for me. People still buy from people.
Not that a jockey's a bad job. Like if you're good with horses, just to take this to a Monty Python extent, let me ask you this. Will sales development reps ever be replaced by artificial intelligence? Could it happen? On the way, there's all this whiz bang, artificial intelligence, machine learning attack. Is any of it interesting? Reps want their emails written. There's cool platforms out there now that help you write the emails. I think we're in the age of writing, where people need to learn to become writers because they have to program this automation. Talk to us about copywriting, about new tech that you're looking at that actually could be promising and have value. And people are trying to understand what to do. Do they need to become a writer? What kind of training do they need to get? There's a lot of SDRs listening on this call that are looking for answers.
Yeah, I think the big one we're going to see in sales, it's already starting, so it's not like I'm predicting something and being incredibly smart about it, is AI. And we're seeing a lot of sales tools now on two fronts, I think. One is sales coaching, tools that are able to, for example, I'll give a couple of examples, are able to listen in electronically to the phone conversations that are being had with customers and automatically analyze the verbiage being used and identify where coaching is being done. So there's some easy examples there, right? Where, for example, you need to immediately be saying a disclaimer. If you're selling insurance, you have to have a certain legal disclaimer said. That's easy. Did they say it? Didn't they say it? But what some of this tech's now starting to do, and I think we're on the beginning of this, is identify who's your performing sales reps and what phraseology, what are they doing? For example, simple example, are your top sales reps not talking about price at all? Does none of the words around cost or price, etc., come up in the first 8 calls? But your poor performing reps, it's coming up early with price objections. It's identifying and providing information about what is different, because it's really difficult, I think, as a sales leader. You don't listen to every conversation. You can record every call, but you don't have time to go and review it. So you tend to dip in and pick select conversations using machine intelligence to analyze huge volumes of data and give insight to, this is the patterns we're seeing on your top performing reps, and give you insight as a leader of, that's the difference, tell you, because then you can work on, how do I now coach those other reps? Because I know what the thing is. Normally, I think you can't see the wood for the trees, because you can coach people, but how do you know what to coach them on? Right? How do you know what Sue's weakness is compared to Bob's strength? How do you know what Dave's weakness is compared to Alison's strength? So that's one area. The other one I'm seeing is tools which are looking at your behaviors and patterns, and they take they need the data to do this, but then predict and give advice to the sales rep on, you should be contacting this customer now. You should be emailing this customer now because they haven't had a communication, or marketing should. So they give you guidance on what are in terms of the omnichannel communication methods, what are the patterns that are being seen to work in your industry, in your company, that will automatically guide other reps to the right type of patterned behavior. Now, that doesn't mean it does the phone call for the rep and takes away the skill, but what it does is says, you should be calling them in the next 24 hours based on the patterns we see, that you've left a gap, and now's the time that you should be making contact based on what we've got and all the wins we've had and all the analysis. So I think there's tools which are going to be able to guide salespeople and give them more intelligence as to when to do what type of behavior. But do I think they're going to replace the salesperson wholesale? I think unless you're in an Amazon type world where you can automate a lot of stuff and it's e-commerce, where you're selling something that is more complex or person decision led, I think you still need the salesperson and the behavior, because people buy from people, right? I would bet that I could contact you and have a more robust conversation than an engine somewhere else that's just emailing you. At some point, rapport comes into it and you buy from people that you like and trust and respect, whether that's a low value item or high value. When you go into a car dealership, if you deal with a person that is just you don't like, there's a chance you're going to go somewhere else to buy, right? Well, we're humans. We make micro decisions that we can't help. We make micro first, and people listening to this would have made a first impression of me within the first few minutes of whatever I'd said, and some would have liked, some wouldn't have liked. And that's the nature of human beings.
You made great points. What's your approach to mindset? This job can be grueling. It's a lot of repetitive tasks. It's a lot of rejection. Even when you're a top rep, your life is mainly rejection. It's mainly negative. So you have to have this vast positivity and this restart mechanism. You get hit with a hard call, you can't take it in the next one. It's like, and it's a grind, and people want to leave SDR or they want to leave AE, or they want to get promoted in this advancement track. And a lot of times they want to get there and they want to put the cart before the horse. There's a tremendous like paying of dues, at least in my generation, where I felt like I overpaid my dues. And then I'd been in the game 10 years in SaaS, and then there's still dues, right, as a consultant. So yeah, I would love to just sort of conclude this episode with how you lead people toward mindset shifts, growth mindset, flow, positive psychology, or things you found that can help people stay motivated. Like you said, the times have changed. You're going out and getting 20 meetings a month or 12 opportunities a month. Pandemic hits, it's like 4, it's nuclear winter. How do you stay motivated initially and then in this time? How have you switched up strategies in this time is another question.
So yes, I think let's handle that. So I think in terms of switching up strategies, it's harder to get hold of people, right? Because they're not in the office. And if you haven't already got their mobile number, how do you get to them? So, social selling, as Daniel Disney talks about, absolutely comes into that in terms of utilizing it as a methodology. But what I would suggest is, and Joanne Black writes about this, no more cold calling, but she doesn't mean not wanting to speak to people. What she means is you make it a warmer call. So what I've consistently embossed with my team is the beauty of things like LinkedIn and social is I profess a thing called being Sherlock, right? Not Lestrade. And that means the clues are usually there, but most salespeople don't spot them. And that's digging around. It isn't just looking at who you share connections with. Go down and see where that individual used to work, right? Because you may know, for example, the VP of somewhere they used to work, but they're just not connected to them. There's so many ways you can find to engage with someone, and it's looking and spending that effort. To your point, you're not picking up the phone, but it's trying to find a way to make that a warming call. Perfect for me is finding a way that I can find someone that knows that individual. I'm jumping on a call after this one, and I've had a personal introduction from someone that I worked with years and years and years ago, but I found actually they're now there. Oh my gosh. Now, they're not connected to this individual, but they work in the same company. Therefore, they have a voice, and they may have passed them the call. It may just not be connected on LinkedIn, right? So it's about pivoting, I think, under COVID to, it's different, but you can still get hold of people. And if you get hold of them, here's the beauty. You're probably one of fewer that's managed to do it, because so many people are failing at this right now, giving up and making excuses. In terms of the motivation of the whole piece, you're right. Even now, I've been in sales 30 years, you still lose stuff, right? You still get people who won't talk to you. You still lose projects. It's the nature of the beast. You still get rejected. You can't win them all, no matter where you are in your career, what product or service you've got. And I think the motivation piece, yes, it comes from within the individual. Some people aren't cut out for being in sales, let's be honest. They like the idea of the money and the rewards, but they don't realize that you're judged every month. You're judged consistently, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and publicly across your business. It's visible. If you're in a back office role, you get a yearly review, but the whole company doesn't get to see how you're doing and how you're viewed. In sales, everyone knows if you're doing well or badly, right? You're visible. But for me, it's the people, the team you build. It's the people around you. It's partly you, but if you've got people around you who are supportive and a leader and a manager who are supportive and coaching and help you, I'm always hands-on with my teams. So if they're struggling getting through to people, I'll help them do calls. I'll get involved and get them back on kilter, right? Because we all have those moments. As sales leaders, we have it as well, where, oh my gosh, how are we going to get this quarter's number? Where's this going to come from, right? Because it isn't magic. You work metrics and you work behaviors and you execute. But sometimes, and any sales rep I interview says, "Well, I've never missed a number." Really? I have. We all. You'll have a bad week, month, or quarter. It's not something negative to you. It's part of the experience of being in sales. The longer you're in sales, the more likely that's going to happen. And it's your tenacity and resilience to doing it. And that, I think, is the biggest characteristic of successful long-term salespeople is you've got to be tenacious and willing to lose. But here's a tip. Here's the tip. When I'm losing or we lose something, how often do you find out why? If we lose a deal, I will always, this is where you can step in as a sales leader to support your team. You reach into the customer. May I have a conversation with you? I'm not going to try and convince you of anything. I want to learn from why you chose someone else. I want to learn. We invested a good deal of time and engagement with you, and I hope you respect that. And in return, what I'd like is a short phone call with you just to learn from it. And more often than not, I find people allow me as a senior in their customer view to jump on a phone call with them. And I explain to them, if my team did something wrong, there's no comeback on them, but we need to learn. We will make mistakes. I'd like to learn from this of what we could have done differently for the next time. I'm not going to try and convince you any different. I respect your decision. And customers respect you for that and tell you things that otherwise you wouldn't know. And it can be something you'd missed early in the qualification. So you should have qualified better. But their view is, well, this is the key reason we chose the competitor. And you didn't even know that. Learn from your losses, turn them into a positive and come away with some value and some equity, where I often leave it with that prospective customer. Thank you so much for the feedback. I really appreciate it. I hope in the future, if something did change, we would have another conversation. You have the chance to increase the rapport, even though you lost. Why would you not do that?
It's a great point. Well, I want everybody to follow your updates at Ian Moyse. It's Moyse. Any other spots they should go to find you?
Yeah, the easy ones there, Justin, at ianmoyse.co.uk and ianmoyse.cloud, and they will take you straight to my LinkedIn and Twitter profiles to follow.
Just to close it out, what's like one book or sales trainer or something that you feel has become esoteric or unknown that new generations here should check out? Could be a person, could be a piece of content, a book. I'm finding there's a lot of stuff that's disappearing that's very valuable from 10 years ago, or we're out right now and people just it's not popular on LinkedIn.
Yeah, one I recommend, you mentioned Daniel, but I'll mention a book from Tim Hughes called Social Selling. And it's very readable. It's not rocket science. And it just talks about how you change your behavior, change makers in business, how you engage with the right people. Very easy read. And you'll get some simple tips out of it that will just mean you don't do social selling wrong.
I love Tim. That's a great recommendation. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll have you back again. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you. Justin, thank you.
You're welcome.